We went to the Distant Worlds Choral Final Fantasy 35th Anniversary concert at the Microsoft Theater in Los Angeles, California. I'm going to be talking about my experience watching the live show and some of the merch that I picked up. So here is my trip report. When we got off the freeway, everything looked so cool and dystopian. I thought that surely this must be where they're filming the Last of Us TV show. But it turns out it was just LA. It was just Los Angeles, California. I hit up the merch table prior to the show, but I'll get to that later. I saw a lot of women walking around wearing cowboy hats, and I thought to myself, they must be really big fans of Cowboy Tifa, or there might be some country rock show going on. I heard one girl walk by with her friends and say, I think there's some anime show going on over there. And I told her, it's the Distant Worlds 35th Anniversary Final Fantasy concert. Enjoy your Garth Brooks. I didn't say that, folks. If you're planning to go to any of these shows, here's a tip. Get there early. I'm sure this applies everywhere, but especially in LA, you're going to have to fight through traffic. You're going to have to find parking. There are going to be lines to get through the metal detector to get into the venue. And there will be lines for the merch tables, for the concession stands. And you're going to want ample time to be able to find your seat without disrupting your fellow audience members or the musicians on the stage. Aside from audience members arriving late to the show, and in some cases very late to the show, and the concession stands being woefully understaffed causing very long lines, we had an amazing time at the show. Distant Worlds Choral, conducted by the great Arnie Roth, the conductor, the maestro, if you will, is truly a celebration of the 35 years of music from the Final Fantasy games. Famed Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy XV composer Yoko Shimomura was a special guest in attendance at the show, and she was actually sitting just a few seats in front of us, which was very cool. The first part of the concert was dedicated towards the early games of the Final Fantasy, like 1 through 6. I remember the first time I played Final Fantasy 3 was on my DS Lite, and it was very cool to hear Eternal Wind performed live. So personally, I am much more familiar with the later games starting from 7 and beyond compared to the early games. They ended the first part of the show with a Final Fantasy 1 through 6 Battle Medley, which was awesome. Then they broke for intermission. My wife then turns to me and goes, "Can you get some snacks?" And I was like, "What?" Because I thought, if we're going in chronological order, it would make sense that Final Fantasy VII, my favorite game in the franchise, perhaps of all time, would be the next tracks to be performed. So I really didn't want to miss a second of that, but I hurried to the concession stand. There was a long line, of course. Here's a picture of the menu if anyone at all is interested. But I get back to my seat, everyone settles down. The lights get dimmed, then Arnie Roth summons the choir, and everyone in the audience starts murmuring like, what's going on, what? And in my head, I was thinking Final Fantasy VII might be next, and immediately you think One-Winged Angel. But this was the biggest surprise of the night for me. Because all of a sudden the choir goes, Vitus! And everyone was like, ah! Oh. I think this might be the 5th or 6th Final Fantasy concert I've been to, and hearing the music live never ever gets old for me. I'm sure everyone else would agree. And I really think that Liberi Fatali is one of the best, most epic tracks ever created for Final Fantasy. And it was really cool hearing Apocalypsis Noctis live, especially with composer Yoko Shimomura being present in the audience. Here is the tracklist that I found online for the Final Fantasy 35th Anniversary Distant Worlds Music from Final Fantasy Choral Live CD, which I already know might not be the same as the set list for every performance, because another highlight for me, which is not listed on these discs, but they did perform it live, was You Are Not Alone from Final Fantasy IX. Riki was also a special guest to perform Suteki Da Ne, Isn't It Wonderful?, which was awesome. And the second biggest surprise of the night for me was the encore track. All in all, it was an amazing night. I cannot recommend enough checking out one of these concerts if you can. They are continuing to perform all across the world. And in Los Angeles, there will be a new World Final Fantasy performance in December. You can find more information at ffdistantworlds.com and ffnewworld.com. Now, shall we talk about some merch? They had a wide variety of tour merch available, including t-shirts, Final Fantasy original soundtracks, an anniversary keychain, music boxes, CDs, vinyl, plushes, and more. I started noticing them putting tape over some of the item listings later in the evening, so some of the merch items do sell out, which is another reason to try and get there early. Maybe you can try asking beforehand, but I know at the Microsoft Theater there was a merch table set up outside. There's also one inside. I'm not sure if there are multiple tables inside or just one. So I got 2 shirts, one for me and one for my wife. I got this orchestra booklet. It's pretty cool. Overall, it's a reflection and retrospective on the last 35 years of Final Fantasy music and also on the 15th anniversary of Distant Worlds. It opens up with an interview with Arnie Roth, and there are 4 pages on Nobuo Uematsu, which is awesome. There's his autograph. I wonder if that's supposed to be him. Some photos. Looks like he's doing a Hadoken here. Then it continues on with some thoughts and insights from some of the other composers and musicians who have joined Nobuo Uematsu over the years in composing and performing music for the Final Fantasy games. There are various commentaries for a bunch of tracks that have been composed and performed, and there are also a bunch of cool photos and pieces of artwork. They had 3 plushes available. I think one of the other ones was a Tonberry, which I think would be a little too terrifying to have enter my home, but I got a Moogle to add to my collection. If memory serves correctly, I remember there was a girl holding something similar to this in Advent Children. That's the first thing that this makes me think of. I got this Final Fantasy VII compilation vinyl. So this vinyl comes with a music download code, so you can play the tracks even if you do not have a record playing device. And finally, I got this 35th anniversary Final Fantasy vinyl set. This also comes with a music download code. And this tote came free with a $75 purchase. So to sum up, and I know I've said this 80 billion times already, but it's always an amazing time. I cannot recommend enough trying to go out and check out one of these concerts. Also, before I go, and I don't know if anyone else feels the same, but hearing this music live and getting to experience it with fellow Final Fantasy fans and seeing and experiencing in person how these games and how some of the best music ever created affects people, it's very inspiring. If you're an aspiring composer like Nobuo Uematsu or Yoko Shimomura, go for it. Take small steps and embrace your dreams. If you're a badass conductor like Arnie Roth, go for it. Or if you're a musician, whatever the case, go for it. These concerts always pump me up in a certain way. It's awesome. It's always a great time. I urge you to check it out if you can. Then I get home and then I just get sad again. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I plan on making more videos on Final Fantasy VII, Remake, Rebirth, and beyond. Stay odd and keep on playing. The show started a little after 8 p.m. There were grown-ass people walking into the venue at 8:30, at 9 o'clock. Sit your asses down. Then if they have seats in the middle of the row, everyone else tries to be polite and they all have to get up to let them through. Find your seats and sit down before the scheduled start time. If you're late, it's rude to your fellow audience members, and more importantly, it's rude to the great Arnie Roth and to the live musicians who rehearse this badass music for you. They rehearse this music to perform for you. Get there early, find your seats, and sit down.